Welcome to the 4 Habits podcast, where we help you build relationships that thrive at home, at work, and in life. We're Dr. Andrea and Jon Taylor-Cummings, and every week we bring you actionable insights to create meaningful connections and lasting success. So let's dive in.
So one concern that arrived with the arrival of the millennial generation and with subsequent generations, Gen Z now, is this idea, this concept, this concern of loneliness and becoming an increasing epidemic. Well, today we have hope and great news because we're talking about the antidote to that, which is friendships. And with us today, we're delighted to have Sheridan Voysey talking us through how to build, how to maintain, how to establish really good friendships. Welcome, Sheridan.
Hi, Andrea. Hi, Jonathan. Good to be with you.
So looking forward to such an important conversation for the time now. And as our audience knows, before we kick off, we need to give you your proper introduction. So, John, share the bio.
All right,
with us.
let me jump into one of my favorite bits. I love all of it, but I love doing this bit as well.
I might discover something about myself here. So,
Well,
yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Let us know. So, Sheridan Voysey is an internationally recognized speaker, an author, and a broadcaster with a gift for helping people find meaning, find belonging, and find hope. He is the founder of Friendship Lab, and we're going to be talking a bit about that, the world's first organization dedicated to helping adults build and sustain thriving relationships, or indeed thriving friendships, I should say. A familiar voice to millions as a presenter on Pause for Thought on BBC Radio 2, Sheridan has written 9 books, including the acclaimed Resurrection Year and also The Making of Us. His work has been featured by outlets such as BBC News, The Times, and The Sunday Telegraph. Whether on stage, on air, or through Friendship Lab, Sheridan's mission is clear: to transform the way we do friendship and relationships so that no one has to navigate life alone.
Indeed.
Really powerful. Any surprises in there?
No, I actually, whoever wrote that last line is lovely. I think I'll pop it onto my Twitter bio or something.
You can adopt that one. It's all true and it's all you.
But Sheridan, you talk about friendships and the power of friendships. Why do you think friendship is that overlooked superpower for our well-being and our success?
Oh, Jonathan, we could speak an hour on that one question alone. When you look at the research into the barriers against adult friendship, there's a few kind of really common ones. One is busyness. We're just so busy. Secondly is mobility. Most of us we're living in a different city than the one that we grew up in. And when you move to another place, there's only a certain number of those relationships that follow with you, even if you try. Third is shyness, which is interesting. We can talk about that a little bit more. I actually think shy people make wonderful friends. But you know what? There's one big one that overarches all of it, and that is neglect. And I'll tell you why we've neglected friendship. It's because we have focused on its prettier sibling, romance. Now, you let me know this. How many of us know the date of Valentine's Day? Everybody knows the date of Valentine's Day. How many know the date of International Friendship Day? Nobody knows it. Scroll through your Spotify playlist tonight, and I charge you to find one song on friendship in your playlists. When you do, it'll be a mere drop in an ocean of love songs. You think about our newspapers. We have dating columns in newspapers. We don't have friendship columns in newspapers. In fact, we have got books and courses, whole organizations that have been really focused on helping people to date and to mate and to procreate. And we have had, I made that one up on the spot, Andrea. And you know what? We have had nothing. This is the amazing thing. We've had nothing up until now on adult friendship, which I just think is diabolical. And that's what Friendship Lab is really here to solve. So I think that's the main thing, Jonathan. We have neglected it, focused so much on the prettier sibling in the room, which is romance.
Wow. Do you know, that's really powerful because we've neglected it all along for decades at least. And then with social media causing us to become more isolated and more, somebody said, I heard it say that we are more focused on our Wi-Fi connection than on our personal connections.
Yes.
So that's totally exacerbated things. So we have this idea of romance that we're chasing, not paying attention to friendship, and now we have social media in the mix.
I'm just going to jump in there for a second. Some might say more focus on our Wi-Fi than on our Wi-Fi.
Yes.
On our wife.
That's where I thought you were going to go, Andrea, actually.
I thought that's where you were going, exactly.
No, on that. But yeah, touche. And make sure you get the point from that as well. But with the personal connections and friendships. So what got you into this? When did you start Friendship Lab and start this focus on being intentional about building genuine long-term friendships?
Yeah, and let's return back to social media because there's a really interesting conversation to have there.
Mm-hmm.
I can point back to a couple of catalysts for me personally. Now, I'll go back to the most recent one, then I'll go back to one deeper. 2019, I was away having a retreat, and I was kind of really reflecting on where my life had gone and where maybe I should go for the next decade or so. And I was prayerfully reflecting about these things, and I was asking myself one question. Sheridan, if there was one big issue in the world that you would like to scratch with the potential hope of maybe solving it, what would that big problem be? And, you know, by the end of that retreat, it really felt very heavily on me, this sense of friendlessness for so many people. And at that stage, I thought, well, I would, you know, go away and do what I normally did, which is when I had a big topic, I'd go and write a book on it. And then out of the book would come media and speaking and events and things like that. So I went and did that. And I went and started writing the book, researching the book. I got an outline together. A couple of really interesting things happened in the meantime. I was made the creative lead of Friendship Season on BBC Radio 2. Now, for our international leaders and listeners and viewers, BBC Radio 2 is the largest radio network in Europe, somewhere between 12 and 13 million listeners a week. There's nothing else like it. It's quite amazing. You don't just rock it up to BBC Radio 2. It's huge. You don't rock it up to Radio 2 and present an idea and have them suddenly take it on, and not just take it on for an interview topic, but actually take it on for a whole week. That's almost exactly what happened. Maybe there's something to this friendship thing. I then wrote a little article for the Times newspaper, which also got quite a bit of response. Those are just kind of confirmation points that, hang on, there seems to be a hunger for this. About a year later, I had my book outline together. I had this confirmation, but I felt there was a real handbrake on the project. So I went back to another retreat, and it was just like, what on earth is going on here? And by the end of that retreat, I had a very, very clear sense of, Sheridan, you are thinking too small. You've been thinking about how to write a book and how to get people to read it. What if instead you were to focus on the 20 to 25% of our populations who have got no close friends and bringing that figure down? What would that take? And that's when I realized, gosh, even if a book does well, it's not going to move the dial on that 25% at all. What would that take? That would take media collaborations, arts collaborations, educational collaborations. It would take podcasts, evidence-based courses, on and on and on and on we'd go. And I left that retreat feeling somewhat unnerved at what was probably ahead. And that really is the kind of the birth of Friendship Lab as an organization. I can also go back further, though. I can go back to a personal experience. 2008, my wife and I were 8 years into what was a 10-year journey trying to start a family. Spoiler alert, nothing worked. And that's the whole topic of those two books you mentioned, Resurrection Year and The Making of Us. How do you start again when a big broken dream has happened in your life? By this stage, we were looking at fostering an adoption. And we were sitting in this seminar discovering what was involved. And our very straight-talking seminar leader said, in no certain terms, she was telling us what was involved. She said, yes, there'll be some wonderful moments. We know that you are here in this seminar because you have a dream of starting a family and you're hoping that it's all going to be lovely and rosy. The reality is it could also be very difficult. And in fact, you may really need a group of people supporting you when the little boy, the little girl who comes into your life turns out to be difficult because of their traumatic backgrounds that maybe they've been taken out of. And then she asked this question, burrowed under my skin, and it's never left me. She said this: who can you call at 2 a.m. when everything has gone wrong?
Wow.
And I remember sitting there with my pen hovering over the workbook because I couldn't think of whose name to write in. Now, it wasn't that I didn't have friends. but I just moved into that city where I was, only been there a couple of years. I was very busy, I was leading a national radio show and doing all of these things, really important things. But I had to be honest with myself. I wasn't being intentional about keeping in touch with the friends that I had in different cities, let alone being intentional about making new friends. And that was my big personal wake-up call to say, oh my goodness, I've got to do something. What do I do? The only thing I could think of was to find out their birthdays and put them in my diary. So at least on their birthdays, they'd have a note from me remembering that I was glad for their existence. I didn't know what else to do. So really, those are the two experiences that I think have kind of formed like kind of merging rivers to create what we now know as Friendship Lab.
That's so powerful that the genesis of this goes so deep and so personal. And if you fast forward now, so you had this vision then already, pre-COVID, it was 25% of people experiencing loneliness or friendlessness. What has COVID and social media done to that number now with, what Gen Z is facing?
We are still not over the effects of that pandemic. So many things changed as a result of that. Not only were we all isolated for months and months at a time, and you think about all the research about how long it takes to create a new habit. I think they talk about 3 months to create a new habit. Well, my goodness, we had weeks and weeks and weeks over the span of, in the UK, 2 years where we were jumping in and out of lockdowns. So that affected us. The effect on the workplace was huge because of hybrid working that suddenly became the norm. And now businesses, even to this day, are struggling to get people back in. And then when people do come back in, they're not kind of the people that they want to see, maybe are not in on that particular day. So the number one place where adults make friends today, now it turns out to be a very difficult place to make friends because you don't know whether they're going to be there or not. So that's had a big impact. So I think there was research done by YouGov that as a result of the pandemic, something like 30% of us had lost friends, not to death, but to just drifting apart, maybe disagreements and things like that. So that had an impact. But the really interesting thing for me is to go back 5 years earlier. We see that when we trace the time spent alone peak, where did it start to kind of grow? It started in 2015. That's when all the research shows time alone started to grow, time with friends and other people started to decline. And it just started to grow really quite significantly. And this was, of course, 5 years before COVID. What happened in 2015? Well, in 2015, smartphones broke 50% market penetration.
Wow.
Oh,
So
wow.
now what seems to be happening is that we're spending much more time tucked away, sitting on our couch, on our buses. We're not talking to anybody around us. We're scrolling, and that is disconnecting us from other people. Now, there are positive aspects of social media to friendship as well. We know it's wonderful for drip feeding information about what our friends are up to. So it's great for kind of conversation starters when you next see them. It can keep us in touch with distant friends, which is really, really important these days since, again, that mobility issue. So there's good things to social media, but it must only ever be used as a prompt to get us in face-to-face conversation, in the room conversation, on the phone conversation, rather than just this kind of generic one-to-mass that we often do with our social media posts trying to look good.
Wow.
Well, I was going to say, and that just leads us on to talk about intentionality and how do we be intentional about it? Because as you say, we can get stuck in almost an inertia. We're very busy. And so we get very reactive rather than proactive about doing friendship well. What were you going to say?
I want to build on the intentionality point, actually, because I think, fortunately, my takeaway, so very sadly, we lost my father-in-law, Andrea's dad, 25 years ago. But it really, well, for me, it was one of these Rubicon moments where you just stop and reflect on life and you just think, okay, what next? Where do we go from here? And one of the things I did was focus on living a life of no regrets. And for me, my takeaway from that was, okay, well, what do I need for that? And I found these 5 F's out there, which was, faith, family, friends, fitness, and finances. And I added another 3 to that, which were fulfillment, foundation, and fun. I needed to be things that I wanted to be intentional about to benefit from. But the third one of those is faith, family, friends. And it was in there and actually just stopped and made me think, when I'm old and grey, where are these friends going to come from? Of course, where's my family going to come from? And friends, well, if you put family and friends in similar buckets, they're quite different, as we all know. But where are they going to be when I'm, sitting on my veranda, on my rocking chair? Where are these friends going to come from? Will they be there for me to sit down and have a beer or whatever it happens to be, however I want to chill and relax with them? And I realized that actually, if I'm not intentional about building the friendships now, what guarantee is that they're going to be there when I need them? But I love your challenge of at 2 a.m. who you're going to call, because I think a lot of us can kid ourselves and say, yeah, we've got friends, but would you call some of those people who you're putting in that friends bucket? Would you call them at 2 a.m.? So I went
and
about
be vulnerable with them.
well, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. To be able to have those kinds of conversations. Yeah. So for me, what I was intentional about doing was actually connecting with friends, and we have a handful of friends who've been very good at sort of reaching out to us and connecting, and birthdays and anniversaries. So I did the same thing. I made a note of birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas. Well, clearly I know when Christmas is, but a point of reaching out to them on those days, on those significant moments. So the question, I guess, is what else can we be doing? How else can we be intentional about cultivating, nurturing these friendships so that when we are looking for them at 2 a.m. with that issue to talk about, they're going to be there? How do we do that?
Yeah. Great question, because look, even remembering birthdays and anniversaries and Christmas probably isn't going to cut it. It's not going to make a 2 a.m. friend. Yeah. Who can we call in our moment of greatest vulnerability and their moment of greatest inconvenience? How have we developed that kind of friendship? There's a few things. We've got a whole evidence-based course on this called the Friendship Lab course, 4 years in development, assessed by an anthropologist at the University of Leicester that found that not only did it transform friendships, but also increased well-being. So there you go. When you focus on your friendships, you also get the benefit of better mental health. A whole bunch of things I could say. Let me just bring down 3 really easy things: check-ins, catch-ups, and meetups. A check-in is pretty much what you've just been talking about, Jonathan. It's a little text. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing? How's this week been? What's been your highs? What been your lows? A catch-up is just a quick 10-minute phone call where you just call up. It can either be planned or you can just do it spontaneously. Really nice when it's spontaneous these days. Don't keep it long, though, because you don't want people to be looking up and saying, oh, here's Sheridan again. Last time we spoke, it was, a 40-minute call. So keep it under 10 minutes, unless they want to keep on going. Hey, Jonathan. Hey, how you doing? How are you feeling better after the cold that you have? How's things going? And what about Andrea? And just a phone call, or it can actually be a video call. And a meetup, of course, is meeting up for coffee, meeting up for a meal, meeting up for a game of football, throw a frisbee in the park, go and count birds in the trees, whatever it might be. It doesn't have to be anything, too highfalutin. If you focus on doing 3 of those every week to different people, you will start to build some 2 a.m. friends.
Wow.
Now, after that, you want to then talk about intimacy. You want to talk about the actions that help a friendship to go deeper. And we can talk about those. There's 4 of them. One is affection, generosity, vulnerability, and shared experiences. So when you start building those things into your intentionality behind your friendships, then you can start to build yourself some 2 a.m. friends. Requires them to respond in kind, of course. But when that happens, then you really start to have some really beautiful friendships.
So I remember 3 of them. I remember generosity and vulnerability. Actually, I only remember 2. What was the first and the last?
I got down affection, shared experiences, and vulnerability.
So together we're done.
Got it. There you go. The beauty of marriage and teamwork again. You evidence it right in front of us.
Okay, so affection, generosity, vulnerability, and shared experiences. And the shared experiences, you really need to be intentional about creating them and getting them in the diary if you're very busy. As well as affection, because you can't do that long distance.
Yes, you can do affection long distance, actually. Here's the thing, is that a good deal of those you can do by distance. It's much better when it's in the room, but my 2 closest friends are still in Australia. And because we've got now one I've known for 30 years, the other one I've known for 20 years, and we have regular video calls. I just had one with my mate DJ on Sunday morning, 1.5-hour conversation where we go deep. And in that, you can express affection. You can let that friend know what they mean to you, and particularly for us guys, that is just so important. I can express generosity. I can be generous. I can send them something from a distance. Not the same as giving it to him in person, but I can still do it.
Yeah.
I can be vulnerable with him and he with me. In fact, we've had very vulnerable moments as well as with my other friends. Shared experiences. You can have some fun with this. We in the past have had Skype pints where we both bring along a drink and kind of it's our moment like we were sitting in a pub together. I've arranged Skype dinners. It's not Skype anymore, but Zoom dinners, Meet dinners, where we actually set up the dinner tables so that you can see the food on our side of the table and you can see yours on them. It's like we're sitting around. Is it the same? No, it's not. But when you've got good close friends, I'll do whatever it takes to keep those friendships even deeper.
No, that's really.
I was going to say, well, that just gives me something practical to do, because one of my sense is that, especially for us guys, making that kind of time in our busy schedules can be tricky. I mean, I see it's not friend per se, it's family, but on the same sort of level. Andrea has a thing that she does with her sisters where every week they have this video call and they're there and they're spending time together. I mean, they're messaging each other daily, if not hourly. Not quite hourly. It's not as bad as that, but very, very regular connections.
They're definitely my 2 a.m. crew.
100%. 100%.
Beautiful.
But for me, I was thinking about with guys quite often, I guess the pressures of work, or at least this is the narrative in our heads. We're busy time. But I love the idea of doing a dinner together. We've all got to eat. So, if we do time it where it works that, you can sit down and eat together, at least you don't feel like, well, this is time when I could be working or whatever. I've got to sit down and eat anyway. So
exactly.
Let's just have that meal together, or let's have that beer together, or whatever it is. I just love the practicality of that.
Yeah.
That's a solution.
Very good ideas.
Yeah.
So I know we've kind of jumped into some of the things that you talk about. Can we just take a step back a bit and talk about how do you start friendships? How do you build friendships, and how do you maintain friendships? Just thinking particularly about Gen Z or those who feel friendless, how do they get started?
Yes. In the Friendship Lab course, we talk about starting where you are and starting with who you are. So before you jump online and start, joining some sort of online meet groups and things, they can have their place, by the way. Apps can have their place. But start where you are. So it might be the office. Look around you. Is there anybody you've had a conversation with in the lunchroom yet? Or maybe, talking through some sort of work-based problem that you've been talking through. You kind of go, you know what, there might be a spark of something there. Try there. If you're a person of faith and you go to church or another place of worship, that's a really good place to start. By the way, all the research shows that churches and sporting clubs are really the two last remaining institutions that bring a variety of different people together regularly. So those are great places to be looking then for potential friends, because you share something in common straight away. It might be a sport, might be a faith. So start there. Your neighborhood might be you might kind of realize that, that other person that I've been bumping into when we both walk our dogs, we've had some interesting conversations. Maybe I'll just see if I can take that conversation a step further. There might even be an opportunity for us to go and grab a drink down the pub, grab a coffee down the cafe, or something like that. So start where you are. There's something called the 25-minute rule in sociology, that we are going to be more likely to stay in touch with people who live within a 25-minute radius of ourselves. Now, here's the interesting thing. It can be 25 minutes walking, riding a bike, on a train, driving a car, in a hyperjet.
Okay.
It's not so much the geographical distance, it's the time.
Right.
But if we're within that time frame, we will be more likely to stay in contact with the other people. So that's a really good thing. And then start with who you are. And so there's a little exercise we have in the course where we get you to write down your identities. So it might be, I am a father, I'm a graphic designer, I'm a Crystal Palace supporter. So you write down all of the identities that you have. That's a really good starting point then for finding other like-minded people. Friendship starts with similarity. I don't think it should stop there, but it starts with something in common, which gives us something to talk about, something to enjoy together. So look at your roles and look at the identities that you have. So start with where you are, start with who you are, And then a third tip is to join a group that meets regularly. So instead of, say, going along to a book launch and thinking, I might meet people at this author's signing event, better still to go and join a book club that meets regularly. Because whenever you meet regularly with people, that gives much more opportunity to get to know them, hear much more about them, etc. So there's a few tips you can use straight away.
So what was number 3? Where you are and then who you are. And what was number 3?
And then join a group that meets regularly
Okay.
rather than a one-off event.
Okay.
And that can include, by the way, going down to the same cafe, just going to the same cafe at a similar time, because again, that can help to get you in contact with other people in your community who also use that cafe on a regular basis. Just try and be consistent. Give it a couple of months. If you don't make any connections, well, okay, move on to the next thing. But groups that meet regularly are just really wonderful for the potential to actually get to know people. Very rare. Look, one of my favorite bands is a band called New Order. I've been in a stadium with 20,000 other New Order fans. I mean, here's people where I had 20,000 people I had something in common with. We were all passionate about this band. Did I meet anybody? Did I walk away with a brand new friend? Of course not. Yeah. One-offs do not cut it. Join a group that meets regularly.
Wow.
So that's really helpful. And can we layer on that then the apps? You said apps have their place, because I know there's something like Meetup. And then you have, of course, if you're dating, all the various dating apps and so on. How do you use those in a healthy, strategic way?
Yeah, a bit of research is coming out on these. So there are very few friendship apps. Most of them are very much based on romance. Mm-hmm. There are one or two. There's one that is a friendship section of the Bumble friend or app for women to find love again. Mm-hmm. But there is a friendship kind of section on that. Again, it can be good to get you in contact with other people, because what happens with some of these apps is that they will ask you a bunch of questions that will help to connect you with other like-minded people. So they might ask you about your values. They might ask you about your interests, the points of commonality you might have with somebody else. So it can kind of do a little bit of the homework for you, really, and then the algorithm helps to connect you with other people. The difficulty can be that even though you might match with somebody, doesn't mean that they're as equally invested in forming new friendships as you are. So I've heard of a number of people for whom they get onto these apps, they put up their profile, they kind of swipe and match with a few people, but then you find out, well, actually those people had put up their profiles looking for friends months ago. That's kind of already kind of been fixed for them, and they're not really available for friendship anymore, but they don't really say so. So you might be able to get a meeting with them, and then if you get one meeting, you may not get a second meeting. So that's the challenge. Still a tool, still worth trying if the other local avenues aren't bringing anything, but it's still worth trying. I'm just still not quite as convinced yet that they're the answer to our loneliness problem. The other thing that we've forgotten, which previous generations knew, was always, how do you connect to people through your current networks, particularly, say, through family gatherings? Getting to know your nephews, nieces, your cousins, the friends of cousins, the friends of your siblings. Sometimes you can find friendships actually through the wider network that you have, that you're already born into. That can be a really, really good way as well.
Wow. I got a couple of questions. I want to jump in. Well, one, I want to go back quickly to a point you made earlier about the meetups and, where you are and, thinking about the setting. I understand there's a trend currently away from some of these dating apps. Yes, they're still out there, but a lot of the Gen Z now, Gen Z, are thinking more around or moving back to traditional, meeting up. So I think that's great. But the question is, in that space, how do you not come across as a sad, lonely Johnny No Mates? How do you rock up to one of these things and actually, what's the mindset that you need to adopt? What's the aura that you need to put out there, or something? Is there something you need to do that helps you connect in this group, or is there a risk that you sort of end up standing there? The people that are listening can't see me acting this out, but you're sort of standing there with your arms at your sides and nobody wants to talk to you, and you're just sort of feeling more and more lonely. How do you counter that?
Wow, such an important question. Actually, there's a double-barreled question of what you're saying there, isn't it? How do I not come across as needy and lonely?
Yeah, exactly.
But also, what do I do when I do get there so that I'm not kind of my worst fears are coming to pass, where I'm standing in the corner, nobody's talking to me,
exactly,
etc. Okay, let's tackle the first one first. We will all be part of that 25% of people who have got no close friends at some point in our lives, probably numerous times in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
This is really key, is that it doesn't mean that it's just one group of people who go through all their lives, lonely and friendless, like it's something attached to certain people. Now, we probably all know people that relationships are difficult for. Let's just put that aside. The majority of us are going to have times of loneliness because either we've moved to a new city, we've got to start rebuilding our networks, or indeed we've stayed and all our friends have left. That happens too. That's going to happen. So if the mindset that you're talking about begins with, we will all be lonely, and I just happen to be in that season now. That doesn't mean anything wrong about me. It's just the season I'm in. And look at me, I'm going and being intentional about it. So that's the first thing. Now, secondly, you do not want to come across as needy, and this can happen through a number of kind of ways. One is we can kind of get in there and just kind of grab onto people. We don't want to do that because they're going to kind of step away going, whoa, this feels a little bit too much. Secondly, we don't want to overshare. This can happen to people who are anxious as well and really kind of driven to connect. So before you know it, you're sharing everything about, your bunions on your feet to, your mother's affair and all of these things that should never come out. And what happens is you think that by you sharing so much vulnerably, that is going to endear you to other people, but it does exactly the opposite because you have not built a bridge of trust yet. And those people are going, you are sharing way too much information with me. What do you want from me? And then they'll step away. So you don't want to do that either. What you want to do is go in confidently and focus on the other person. This is an absolute game changer. If you focus on me and, am I going to talk to anybody or anything like that? No, go prepared with some questions. We've got a whole bunch of them from Friendship Lab that you can download for free. Go prepared with a few questions ready. Get there early. If you get there late, what tends to happen is everybody's, broken up into their groups and they're all kind of talking, and then you've got to muscle your way into groups. So get there a little bit early. And then all you do is open up with some really general questions. Hi, I'm Sheridan. What's your name? What brings you here? Who else do you know here? And just find out a little bit more about them. And then there's the typical questions, what do you do? We can do better than that. We can tweak those questions a little bit more by saying, what do you do in your spare time? Then you might be able to follow up a little bit later on in the conversation. What would you love to have more time to do? And before you know it, you're actually asking some questions that have just been tweaked a little bit to find out a little bit more emotionally about them. That's how you start to form a connection. And then you want to find some sort of way, if you're really enjoying this conversation, you don't want to move too quickly, but find some sort of way to get in touch with them after the event that you've just met with them in the room. You might talk about some sort of topic and you go, actually, I've got a really good article on that. Do you want me to message you over that? Is it okay to take your phone number? Or if you want, I can give you mine, and then, I can contact you that way or whatever. Yeah. So go in confidently, focusing on them. There is something called the spotlight effect. And that's the idea that when we walk into a room, suddenly there's this spotlight on us. Everybody's focused on what we look like, what we're saying, whether our dress is sitting well, whether the lipstick is smudged, all of those things. Here's the thing. The spotlight isn't on you. Everybody else thinks the spotlight's on them. So instead, go in and actually help to relieve their pain by finding out a little bit more about them. That's the starting point. So
you mean I don't have to worry about my makeup and lipstick and all that kind of stuff?
And certainly not today, Jonathan. I'm looking at you now and I'm kind of going, I need to know who your makeup artist is.
But okay, so that's a great segue into the next question I have, which is, and I don't know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What about cross-gender friendships. Is it okay for guys to have these friends as women and vice versa, or is that just putting you into danger territory now where there's romance, especially if you have, if you're in an established relationship already? Is that danger territory, or what's your guidance on that?
Again, we've got a whole session on this in the Friendship Lab course. Why? Because whenever I speak at an event, it always comes up.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. Now, it's funny because I was listening to a couple of very, very well-known people recently do a podcast, and they started off the conversation by saying, "Oh, it's almost an antiquated question. This whole idea of whether men and women can be friends. Oh, it's just so outdated. Of course, they can be friends." Within seconds, they're then kind of transitioning to, you know what? I have to be honest here. Actually, some of the friendships that I have had have actually started to move towards romance. So the fact is, yes, there is something for us to look at there. Okay, we can spend an hour on this. Let me give you a few headlines. Number one, male and female approaches to friendships are different.
Right.
That's what the research says. Whether that's culture, nature, nurture, whatever it might be, who knows? But there are different approaches. In general, these are stereotypes, but the stereotypes can fit for 80% of the situation. In general, women really value emotional connection. And one of the reasons why then, when there's a breakdown in female-to-female friendships, it's because that emotional connection, the expectations were so much higher. Whereas for men, it can be easier to get over a bit of a breakdown in the friendship because that emotional connection was not as highly valued. Men, in general, really value initiation of activity. And so that's what we're kind of looking for in our friendship. Now, that's very general, very broad brush. There's a whole bunch of them. Go and do the course if you want to find out more. Now, the interesting thing is that male and female friendships, as a result of those differences, can actually then be complementary. So women who are asked why do they value the friendships that they have with the males in their life, they'll actually say things like, they're just less drama. I can actually get together.
My exact words. Yeah.
We don't have to get together and just talk, and we don't have to talk about all sorts of emotional stuff. When I get together with my male friends, we can go and do things, and actually it's kind of easy to just have a bit of fun. When men are asked what they find valuable about friendships with females, they often say, because I can talk to them, because I can be vulnerable with them without the fear that what would happen with my male friends is they're going to start joking, they might ridicule, they might, I start to get vulnerable and they'll go, crack some sort of joke because they get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
That shows that there's some work on all of our sides to do because, indeed, often the one thing that males have left in the toolbox of affection is joking. And of course, that can very rapidly move into coarse joking. And before you know it, you're not going to share anything.
Yeah.
You can thank Freud for that, by the way. Well before Freud, men were being very vulnerable and sharing all sorts of affection with each other. I've got letters from friends in the 19th century where they're expressing their undying love for each other. And then Freud comes along and says, actually, hidden beneath all of our relationships are hidden erotic desires. And it's at that point, and a few other factors as well, that basically men start pulling away because they don't want to be misunderstood. And so now, where else can we express affection apart from the football pitch? It's the only place.
Yeah.
And certainly, just lastly on that point, certainly my experience was certainly my world of work, wherever I had female friends, even in the workplace, the assumption and it was always the guys, well, if you have this friendship, there must be something romantic going on there.
Yeah.
And there was the judgment that sort of sits in people's minds there. So there's something there that needs to be addressed, as you say, societally. Sorry, you had something else.
No, I just wanted to go back a bit to that point. It's being generous when you shine the spotlight on somebody else, which picked up on your point about generosity, vulnerability, and so on. And a line that I heard, which has really helped me, is interested is interesting. When you are interested in the other person, you become an interesting person because everybody likes talking about themselves. So that kind of mindset will always help you build great friendships. But go back to the cards, if we may. Once you've done that first introduction, because one of our, a lot of our next generation, nieces, nephews, children say, especially when you've established a friendship online, how do you then take the friendship to the next level? You know, you've gone past all the initial stuff that you might ask online. What are the conversations or questions you can have to move to the next level? And I know you mentioned 3 levels.
Yes. So you can download a set of 36 questions from us on friendshiplab.org. You'll find it just there for free. Basically, just put your email address in.
Perfect.
And that has 3 groups of 12 questions. The first group of 12 questions help you move from acquaintance to casual friend. The next 12, casual friend to friend. The next 12, from friend to close friend. You're not going to ask the third group of the first group of people. They're just too intimate. So it kind of helps you along. Now, I don't actually have one of the first group handy, but let me give you one from the... Actually, yes, I do. Yeah. How about this one? How would those closest to you describe you? And would you agree? So we're not talking about trivia here. You know, you get some of those icebreaker questions. If you're an animal, what animal would it be? You know, it's just like, there can be some meaning in that, I guess. But we're talking about exploring the person. Yeah. How would those closest to you describe you? Oh, yeah, they describe me as creative, maybe a bit impulsive. Yeah, I think they'd be right on the first. I don't know if I agree with them on the second. And before you know it, you can have a little bit of fun about it, right? So those are questions that you can ask. Another one is, what quality do you value most in others? Because, of course, that immediately actually shares what you actually value yourself. So you're starting to find out a little bit more about who this person is. What 3 things would your perfect weekend have? Whenever I'm running seminars, I start with this one. I get everybody in the room to pair up with somebody who they don't know, preferably same gender, and I say, you've got 2 minutes to find out 3 questions: what their name is, where they're from, and what 3 things their perfect weekend would have. And then the other person finds out the same from you, and you've got to listen closely enough that then you can introduce the other person to us. Now, that straight away gets people engaged in 1, asking questions, 2, active listening, 3, actually finding out something really significant about this person that you're sitting next to. Isn't that much better than what do you do for work?
Yeah, indeed.
Those kinds of questions. You can come armed with them. Just have a few ready, go to that event, come armed with them, and you'll find that, you know, you can find better connections a lot faster.
Wow. We've covered so much. It's jam-packed with all these ideas of how to be intentional, how to build relationships, even if people are long distance, how to nurture those relationships and move them from just acquaintances all the way through to close friend, to our 2 a.m. friend. I think we're gonna name it that.
I love
now.
that. I love that.
To our 2 a.m. friend. Anything that we've not covered, Sheridan, that you really wanted to share with the audience before we leave? I know we haven't spoken much about the workplace and leadership. Any thoughts you want to share on that or something else?
And we've only got a couple of minutes now, so closing thoughts on that. I know it's a big one. Sorry.
A couple of things then. Firstly, especially if we're talking to professionals, we will all say, yes, we're way too busy. And many of us are very, very busy. Hey, gosh, launching a nonprofit like Friendship Lab, I have never been busier in my life. Launching a national radio show was easier than this, I can tell you now. But you know what? The research says that the average person watches somewhere between 4 and 5 hours of streaming video alone per day.
Wow, per day.
We've got time for friends. We're just using it elsewhere.
Yeah.
I'd like to leave people with that. Then when it comes to the professionals who are listening, Red Cross just released a report that found that senior leaders are twice as lonely in the workplace as regular workers. Twice as lonely. Number of reasons why. Who do you share with? Who can you be vulnerable with? Who can really kind of have that allyship with? Because who knows, they might be coming for your job. Who knows, they might share what you've just shared and it might be confidential. You can understand that. There's a lot of work for us to do, actually, with really helping senior leaders to stay strongly connected. Now, quick tip on that. Obviously, it's much easier when you develop friendships outside of the workplace. Certainly much easier. So make sure you intentionally develop those friendships that you've made from other workplaces and through your sports networks and through other circles that you inhabit on a regular basis. But it's just so important because we're seeing a number of senior leaders feeling very isolated, very disconnected. That leads to all sorts of things, addictions, controlling behavior, and certainly anxiety and depression. If you focus on having a few close friends, you will have lower anxiety, lower depression, higher meaning, higher happiness, and on average, a 7-year longer lifespan. It really does pay to get intentional about your friendships.
Wow.
And it
How's
just-
that
wow.
for a bombshell to drop?
Yeah.
7 years longer in life.
Well, it also just shines a spotlight or brings explanation to a lot of the quote unquote paid for friendships that some of these senior leaders will have, where you just can't get people around you that you can trust or what have you. Step out of that network, pay for the friendships for however long it happens to be, and you can offload there, you can connect, etc. So it absolutely makes sense why that sort of stuff is
You're
happening.
absolutely right. Yeah, you've really put
Wow.
your finger on something there.
Yeah. Wow. There's so much more we could talk about, Sheridan. I'm just conscious of the time though. Any you already mentioned friendshiplab.org. What else? How else can people find out about some of the work that you do? Where can they get some of these resources?
Yeah, well, if you get that free tool, you also get a second free tool. It's a little friendship audit, and it helps you to map your current relationships over 5 stages: acquaintance, casual, friend, close, and then a 2 a.m. friend. It's a really helpful tool of working out who you could spend more time with to move them up, who has been slipping down, and therefore you need to get back in contact with. The majority of friendships don't break, they drift. And so it can be a really helpful tool of working out who do I need to do that check-in, catch up, and meet up with. And just give you some real, helpful tools as to, well, who are the people around me that actually I could focus on and maybe develop some sort of friendship with. So, yeah, friendshiplab.org. You'll find the free tools there, and do come along and join the Friendship Lab course as well. We've got people from all around the world doing it. Again, it's the first evidence-based course solely focused on adult friendship, so might be helpful for you.
Amazing. Definitely plugging a gap in society right now. And the great thing is, everything you've said is applicable to couples as well, especially that line, relationships don't break, they drift. How can you be intentional about maintaining that friendship? Is that what you were going to say?
No, I was actually going to pick up on the couples point. And I know we don't have time for this, but just very quickly, in your courses, do you touch on couples making friendships with other couples in terms of, rather than, the couple between the couple, you know what I mean, but that couple actually looking for friendship groups where they have other couples so they connect with.
Really interesting. No, the course specifically is focused on the 6 essential kind of themes of friendship, and then you can apply them to all sorts of things. I will say this though, your marriage will be better if you have a bunch of close friends. All the research shows that. That means that there's less relational weight placed on your spouse when it's kind of spread out across your friends as well. Men, we need to listen to this. Too often I have men say to me, my wife is my best friend. And I say, that's fantastic. She should be your best friend. But I think what you really mean is, my wife is my only friend. And that's a problem.
Hiding behind that one. I've got one, so I don't need any more. Actually,
exactly.
No. Yeah. Wow.
Powerful. I knew this was going to be a great call, and it's delivered that and more. So, Sheridan, thank you so much for making the time and for joining us in such an important conversation. And we wish you all the very best in this great work that you're doing, especially to help our next generations, Gen X, Y, Z, navigate life and rediscover personal connections again. So thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, Jonathan.
Well, to our audience around the world, we say thanks for being with us yet again. I'm sure you've all taken away some really great stuff. We certainly have. I am going to be going back to F number 3 for me, friendship, and just seeing what else I can be doing to be intentional. And now actually challenging myself, stretching myself, I was going to say, to find those 2 a.m. friends.
Yeah.
Who would I call if I needed to at 2 a.m.? You're not around for whatever reason. My best friend isn't around. That's Andrew I'm talking about here. Who else am I going to call with, things on matters of my heart?
Affection, generosity, vulnerability, shared experiences. Let's do it on purpose. And it's a wrap.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the 4 Habits podcast. Now, if today's episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget, take our free relationship skills quiz at the4habits.com/skills quiz to start improving your relationships today. hit subscribe, and we'll see you next time.